Hello everyone. We're live. Hopefully you all have been having a good week. Let me spit that out since that is not cute during live. I got my second COVID vaccination shot today, so we shall see if that 24-hour knock you down on your face happens to me. Hopefully it does not. And hopefully today we've got more service, so I can actually have a live without choppy bad service. So hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Hello again, friend.
Hopefully, I see this time you've got some better lighting. I hope this time I've got better service, so we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, exactly, right? I was like, okay, well, we got round two, and we have round two of the COVID shot. And you had the first one when we first our first video. Yay!
We will see how it goes. So far, like, I haven't shown any symptoms. It's not even sore on my arm, and I got it at 10:30 this morning, so
Well, we have to think
fingers
about
crossed.
what the irony is that this you would be getting your second shot as we're doing the second video.
It's crazy.
When did
Exactly a
you
month.
When did you realize, like, how did you realize that it was that the correlation that it was this?
I realized it was the second time because I have really bad service here in Lynchburg. And I was just like, got to make sure I'm in a good service spot for my live with Garland the second time around. And I was like, oh my gosh, the last time I was in Lynchburg with crappy service. So I found a better spot this time. So
How do you? I don't even know. How do you share these things? Like, I don't even. How do you share?
so the little airplane thing in the bottom right corner,
Okay.
or triangle, whatever people call it. But when you hit that, you can share it to all the different people, and
Oh,
people watching can share it. We can share it, and then of course the little question mark is for people who have questions that they would like to ask us during the live.
awesome. Well, I'm glad to be back. Thank you for having me back again to give us a second chance to converse and have some
Yeah,
positive talk going on. And I'm certain that this conversation will be just as good as the other one. And let's hope that we don't have any malfunctions in our connection.
yeah. I think that last time we just had too much positive energy going, and they were like, nope, can't have that much in the
Oh,
day.
God. It was like I was feeling that flow. Like we were even with the glitches, right? It was annoying, but what we were saying and how we were flowing, of course, I knew we would anyway. But so it didn't even like make me feel, like, oh darn, that was the video had glitches and it wasn't good, and and I want to do it again. First of all, I didn't want to do it again because we did owe ourselves to have one that wasn't so glitchy, number one. Number two, I just want to talk to you anyway. So.
Well, I figured we could just kind of jump right into a fun conversation, kind of around like the idea that you and I have had about getting a room together for Clubhouse,
Yes.
kind of talking about, because I think that there's so many rooms out there already and spaces out there already, led by people in the straight community when it comes to like positive energy and self-love and self-healing, all of that stuff. But I feel like a lot of the LGBT spaces, a lot of it is people sharing their trauma, but it's not really talking about healing from that trauma. And I think that you and I have both taken a lot of time in kind of healing ourselves and taking ourselves on that journey. So I figured it would be a really fun conversation to kind of talk about that journey that we've both had and kind of share some of our experiences as well as some advice that people might be able to use to kind of start their journeys or forward themselves a little further on their journeys.
Yeah. I I totally agree with you. Like, I mean, I go into the spaces where I have learned and where I have developed are more, mixed spaces. It's like saying the clubs that a club is all straight people. That's just ridiculous, right? So, most of these spaces seem to be, diverse, but not just inclusive of you know, our community or other communities. And those are the spaces that I've been going in that I've actually been getting my healing. And then when
Yeah.
I go into our spaces in the LGBTQ plus spaces, it's more people just, you know, dumping and nobody actually trying to heal from that pain or having advice to even help you start your journey with, you know, healing. And it's funny that, you know, we're always connected, right? So I co-moderate this room with Susan Nicholas, Dr. Susan Nicholas, who I was telling you I want you to be able to do a live with at some point. But anyway, she bought a copy of my book, and she also writes, right? She has 4 books. And so she bought a copy of my book. She's reading it. And then she asked me, would I be a part of her podcast? Because she wants to interview me on her podcast. And so it was funny because she mentioned my book in her room and I cringed. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even really realize I had like this imposter syndrome about my book, right? But when I cringed and I released it, all of a sudden, like so many things have been happening. Like one of my gay friends, he contacted me as well. He said, Garland, I bought 4 copies of your book and I want to do an IG live with you for Pride Month. And so like so many great things have been happening because I myself, just as a human being, realize that there's things that are in me that is keeping me from being able to really flourish in my life. And so I was looking and I was like, I wanted to also bring in my book in this conversation. And I was flipping through it and I was thinking like, well, I wanted to read an excerpt and I was like, well, what could I read? And then of course, like I saw one that I kind of thought that I might want to read, but then you said, let's talk about our community and how, you know, they're not really healing from their wounds. And so this segment in my book, it's called Wake Up, right? And so it says, I am not the only person who has felt isolated from the gay community. I have read research papers and watched documentaries on how difficult it can be to fit in with other gays. In one documentary, there were a group of gay guys who had eating disorders because they felt it was necessary to be skinny in order to fit in. There was another group that chose to be super muscular to get noticed by other gays. I will give you an example of what happened to a close gay friend of mine. He was overweight and often referred to himself as being Casper the Ghost whenever he was at gay bars. No one ever seemed to notice him until he decided to lose weight and started working out. Unlike never before, he was no longer Casper and began to get noticed. And, you know, he and I talked about that a lot years, like before even now, that people are being more conscious about being better, or making themselves or raising their vibrations, their consciousness and awareness. That we would talk about that often because it was kind of like, how do people, or specifically in the gay community, can look at a person and if they like the way they look, what about who that person actually really is? Like, I mean, I understand that men typically are super visual, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, if you like me, and again, I have to be clear that I'm not saying that people don't have their preferences. There does have to be an attraction, but why does it have to be so particular? You know what I mean? Like there's a specific kind of look that gay men feel like they have to have in order to get noticed. And meanwhile, they're trying to do this superficial presentation, and then the inside is just hollow.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I definitely also fell victim to seeing those images of what I saw the people that were being like viewed by everyone else, and I just kind of watched other people. I even had a friend who we were really close friends, but he was more of that appeal with like the muscular body, and I watched every single person that I was interested in just shift their gaze over to him. And it was really hard for me not to take it so personally. Uh, and it was just so weird because a lot of people now say that him and I look very similar, but back then he had all the confidence in the world and I lacked all confidence in the world. So for me, I watched people zone into him as a person, and it knocked me down further off of my level of confidence. But one thing that I started realizing as I started going through the healing process and understanding and loving myself was a lot of times the things that we think that other people don't like about us, or we think when people look at us they see so like predominantly about us, it really doesn't have to do with that at all. More, the thing that I noticed is what I see in the mirror and what I start to hate about myself and tear myself down and lose all confidence about myself. It's the person I created is what's becoming so unattractive to the world out there. So like
Wow.
when I'm sitting there like, because I would be really insecure, and I remember asking people, I'm like, would you date someone like me? And I was so desperate for someone to say yes, I would, because I couldn't see it when I looked at myself, and no one was attracted to me because I was just spewing out the lack of confidence that I had. And when I stopped doing that and I started pointing out things to myself that I loved, and when I started to actually walk out of my house and be like, you know what, I'm not that bad looking. You know what, I've got some things going for me. I've got a good heart. People should love me for that. And when I started focusing on that, I started to notice that people started like gravitating towards me, and I wouldn't say that my appearance changed that much. Like maybe I started to learn how to actually gel my hair in a direction that was fitting for my face, but other than that, I would say I still look the same. But it's very interesting to see like the shift between confidence. But I do think that yes, there's also a very stereotypical look that a lot of people start to gravitate towards. But I've noticed as I got older, people fall away from gravitating towards that and starting to realize that a lot of people are very shallow in that pool. And I think people start looking for people with some type of substance. And I mean, now that I've gotten older, the things that I start looking for is, does this person like have confidence in themselves? Are they on their journey to figure out what they love about life? Do they treat other people with respect and kindness? Like those types of things like start to pull me towards people. And if I see the lack of those things in someone, like I'm so grossed out by that person. I'm like, wow, that person's a horrible person. They think the world owes them something just because they're cute. And I've started to realize that a lot of it has to do with up here first before it has to do with anything on the outside.
Yeah. I used to go every time I hang out with one of my best friends, she had lacked the confidence that I had. And so it would be that same kind of situation. Like I was the one that people were gravitating to me, or they would give me a compliment when where we go to a restaurant, or if I'm just walking by someone. And she would just always kind of be like, I didn't realize that she was envious, and she also was jealous of the attention that I got. But, there's also times too, just bring this kind of into the law of attraction, right? I remember one day I was in my car and one of my clients came by the car to say hi. And she said, "Oh my God, you look like a movie star today." And I literally went out the house. Wasn't thinking about like trying to do anything extra with myself. And And guess I just went to the grocery store. And so it was so funny when I drove off. I remember like looking in my rearview mirror to see if I could see what she saw. And so sometimes when we don't even put the extra effort in, right? I think when there's an ease about who you feel you are, or when you get to know your inner person, that there becomes this ease about the way you move, and that is what draws people to you, right? I used to get upset because I never was the type of person that wore a lot of makeup. Like I would put makeup on some just to go if I was going out or to an event. And so on a regular basis, I never wore makeup. And so when I moved to California from Louisiana, I was working with a lot of people who are makeup artists and all this stuff. Everybody wanted to paint my face. I want to paint your face. So they did all of this contouring and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I remember I left the salon that day. Men were looking at me that were just on the street, like not even in other cars. They were looking at me in the street. And then when I got out my car, there was a guy walking by and he said something not good. And I was just thinking, like, I said, I'm getting all of this attention and I have on a mask. Like, this is a mask. Like the person that I am is far better than what I think I look at. When you consider we're always critical of our own selves. I know that I'm not a bad looking person, but I also am human and I do look at my flaws often, but I'm aware of it. But I also know that the most important thing and the most attractive thing about me is the person I am and not what I present on the outside. So whether I feel like putting makeup on or not, for me, doesn't make me feel less than when I go out, right? So some people could go out, say you didn't do your hair the way you wanted to do it, Drummond, right? And so then all of a sudden that made you feel insecure because you knew you didn't have the time to really get it, or you were frustrated because you were trying to get that hair just the right place and you didn't. And then you go out and then you're emanating that kind of energy because you didn't get the hair right, right? And so then you're wondering why nobody wants to, nobody's being drawn to you, but it's because you're reflecting that. You are deflecting everyone, and we don't realize how our stories, the stories we tell ourselves, are exactly what we project out. I'll say this one more thing and then I'll let you take it over. I just listened to this podcast that blew my mind. The guy said, he said, when you're in a movie theater, right? So let's pretend like the projector itself that puts the show on the white screen is, an entity, right? So the projector thinks that the movie that goes on the screen is out there, right? It's out there because that's where you see it. So the projector thinks that everything that's seeing out there is an outward source, but really it's coming from the projector. And so I was like, oh my God. So really, like, the world itself and people is like a blank screen. And we are the projectors. We're the film that's showing is a direct reflection of the stories that we have inside ourselves.
Yeah.
Who knew?
I think the best way to like examine that idea is have multiple people explain a situation to you where maybe someone just got done having the most wonderful day, someone else had kind of a crappy day, someone just had a day, and have a situation happen in front of them and have them explain how the situation happened right in front of them. And the person with a phenomenal day is projecting into that story their life, and the person who had a really bad day is projecting it the same way. And when you hear the different tellings of that story, because there have been plenty of times where I go out with my sister and I'm on cloud nine just going through life, and someone will say something and I'm just like, oh, look at that. And my sister will hear it, and she's got a lot of stress on her plate, and she's like, did you hear the way that person said that? She thinks she's so much better than us. And I'm like, I mean, I thought that she seemed really nice and pleasant, and she's like, no, she was like acting like she was above us or something, and I'm like, really? I didn't get that. And it's because when it comes to life now, I go out and I don't think that way. I don't think someone's better than me. I don't think that something has put them further ahead of me in life. I'm just like, you know what? Like, I've got what I've got, and when I put it out into the world, that's what I'm going to get. And yes, there's things that make someone like have a little bit more privilege than other people, and of course that plays a role in things. But also, like your mindset when you go into those types of things also plays a really big role into it. Because I remember back when I was still very young in being gay and not accepting myself, and people would walk all over me when it came to me being part of the LGBT community. And when I learned to accept it, and I was just like, it's not going to change. I mean, they're just going to have to get used to it. My confidence in myself shed so much light on the LGBT community that it started changing the people around me's opinion of our community, because I wasn't going to accept their denial of my rights. I wasn't going to accept their hatred towards our community. I I just don't accept it. And it's crazy to kind of see how that changes how people communicate with you, because they could choose to be disrespectful, but I don't accept that way of communication. So they have to change if they would like to communicate with me as a person. And that came with building confidence, that came with learning to love myself despite whether or not someone else in the world can love me for who I am. And it took a lot of healing. And I think in the LGBT community and a lot of other minority groups where society tells us that we are other or different and not as good as someone else, we do have to go through life and heal that idea of ourselves. Because if we allow ourselves to start to think that we are other, or that we are different, or that there are people out there that are better than us for some reason, uh, we're blocking ourselves from actually living a life that we're meant to live, because we've already accepted that someone is better than us, which I think you have to get that out of your head. Got to remove it to achieve what you want, because as long as you think someone's better than you, like there's someone blocking your ability to go higher than you are right now.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I want to mention is that, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is about, you know, you making the decision to heal those broken spaces and places within you. But you also somehow, I'm assuming from your background of Christianity and everything, had some tools to try to find that space, right? And so this is why it's important for us to, you know, it's like, obviously the timing is not right for us to do that room, but it'll come. Like I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, wow. I said, this room is really needed, and Drummond is the only one who stepped up to like really kind of think about doing this with me. But and then I was thinking, when it popped in my head again, I was like, okay, well, it's just not the time. Like, you know, it has to all line up. Like, we know that we want to do it, and when the timing is there, it'll happen, and it's going to be amazing, because it's so needed, Drummond. Because especially now, there really is this shift in awareness. Like, there's this group. I mean, like, I have never felt it in this way before, and I actually sat on my book for a long time and didn't even really talk about it, because I had this feeling before COVID, long before COVID, that I was like, because I've always been ahead of my time, and I had this feeling that my book was not, the people weren't ready to hear what I had to say. I was like, people are not ready yet, and I was okay with that, because I'm always able to help people as I do hair. That's like my platform to have these type of conversations. Every client that sits in my chair, these are the conversations that we have, right? So I get to do this daily. And so, exactly. And so, and it's really great. So for me, I was still being able to have people who heard me, but in a bigger platform, I was not feeling like people were truly receiving it, right? They weren't ready, they weren't receptive. Everybody was caught up in all the superficial things. And so now that people are awakening because they realize, like, oh my God, all the things that I thought I needed, I no longer need. But what's most important now is trying to think about, like, who am I really? And what do I really want with myself? So I'm so thankful that we are in a space now that we want to have these conversations, that we need to have these conversations. It just flipped, right? Everything was like superficial, trying to find all the distractions, to now people wanting to hear. So like I'm all at peace. Like I can use an example. Like there was a guy who when George Floyd situation happened, and he was the Malcolm X of this time, and he was just like, you know and I was just opening my eyes to the severity of that we still have this type of discrimination going on between, for being black. And so he was upset because he was like, I've been knowing this. Like, y'all just getting into it. Yeah, I've been knowing this. So I was thinking, I was like, wow, and that must have been really a burden that he was carrying for a long time, that nobody else could see it in the way he did. And so I just thought about that, because it's the same thing for me now. Everybody's all like, getting into this awareness. And I'm like, well, I've been doing this work since I was a kid, right? But nobody could hear me. And I just felt alone, and I felt lonely. And, I stayed to myself because I don't have superficial. Drummond, I could do a superficial conversation for a few minutes. And then after that, like, I'm like, if our conversations are not getting into something deeper and something real, then I'm not interested, So we definitely do need these type of conversations. I love that you're doing these positive talks with a lot of people in our community as well, because it is important for people to know that we are having these conversations and that you can heal.
Yeah. I mean, I think even within some of the positive talks that I've done with people who they might not have been on that level of having those types of conversations on a regular basis. And after we had the talk, they connected with people within the audience as well as connected with me on a deeper level. And then they started to realize that they themselves were starting to have deeper conversations with the people around them. And tons of people have been messaging me saying, wow, like that, I didn't expect that outcome after the positive talk. And I was like, I kind of tricked you into it. I, you didn't think that we were going to, because most people don't think that they can talk for an hour. Most people don't think that they've got a lot to say or anything that would be important to an audience want to listen to. And we've all got it in us. And I think that the more people unlock that, and sometimes it takes help. I mean, I've been doing coaching, so I have read hundreds of books to help me figure out what type of questions to ask and how to have a conversation to unlock those deeper levels within people that I'm communicating with. And I think it's important for people to realize that self-reflecting, and every time like you have a bad feeling, every time you have a good feeling, every time you feel something, you should examine it and understand it and look deeper within yourself when something excites you. Why does it excite you? Because a lot of times there's a shallow understanding of it, and then we try to replicate it and we can't, because we didn't look at what was the actual root cause of that happiness or joy, and we can't replicate it because we don't understand it. And I think there's too many people that are just going through life on this shallow like understanding of what really like drives them as human beings. And it's different for all of us. I can't write a book and tell you, hey, this is how you're going to like fall in love with life. It's all about writing something where you're getting them to unlock it within themselves.
Absolutely.
And I think for the longest time I was searching for that out in the world. I was like, someone tell me, like, what do you do to be happy? Like, what do you do? And I would like post surveys for like people to give me answers, hoping that one of them would just click. And then I started asking myself, and then when I answered a question, I asked a deeper question, and I started digging down into me. I was just like, oh wow, I've got the answers for myself. And that's what I try to do with other people as well. Like I've worked with other coaches that believe that they have answers to give, where I've learned that as a coach, for me, my most successful clients are when I don't have any answers for them. I have questions, and I help them with asking tons and tons of questions for them to answer in an authentic way. And then I'm like, ha, I got it.
There
We
it
found
is.
it. And it's all about unlocking it within them, because I don't have the answers for everybody.
Yes.
Like, people have
Yes.
asked me, like, they're like, how do you work with so many diverse people? Other coaches are like, I have a very specific group. And I'm like, I don't need super specific. I just need people to be authentic and answer these questions honestly. And even if they're not going to say it out loud to me, as long as they're answering it authentically in here and they start to unwrap it themselves, it's crazy to watch those moments where people, like, it's like those walls that we've been building up, whether, like you were saying, putting on makeup. A lot of people put on other things that build up over time. It's like putting wallpaper and then paint and then more wallpaper, when what we really need to do is be peeling that away and
Yeah.
trying to find who we were authentically, and how society and our parents and our friends and coworkers slowly put more and more things on us to give us a meaning, when really we were born to do specific things, and we fall in love with certain things, and that's what we have to uncover, which requires no one else really to give us answers, but more people to ask us questions.
I got super emotional while you were talking because first of all, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. And I'm so happy for you for discovering yourself, you know, and being able to be in a place of feeling confident. And you know, the thing is that when I say confident, you know, people can look at confidence as like, you know, you can make, with the English language, we can make anything bad, right? So you can say confidence, and then people will turn it into that you're arrogant, right? But when you're truly confident, all of that, the negative connotations or whatever anybody could say about it, it just dissipates, right? So when someone says something negative to you, when you are truly sitting in that place, in that centered place of knowing, it just like that, none of that means anything. Like you can speak with this assertiveness and this knowing and this assuredness. And like, oh, well, because I'm just bring it back to you because I was listening to you and I can hear this confidence and I can hear this assuredness. But what you're saying though also is resonating to me because that's what is in me as well. Right. So we're doing this it's a projector. It's a projector going from your end to my end. It's a flow that what you're saying is coming to me, was going to you. It's just this constant flow. And that's how the universe works. It's a flow. We're energy. And so I was thinking about when you said you asked questions, that the same guy who talked about the projector, his name is Tiger Singleton. I encourage anyone that is doing the work to go and listen to some of his videos and everything. Now I heard him on this podcast. I did go and Google him and I saw he has a lot of work on there, a lot of videos. But I haven't gotten to him yet because I'm actually on my third time today listening to his podcast because he also says he asks his people questions. He said, I ask questions. Like I help them to find it themselves. And so I was so inspired one day because usually I think I have all the answers. So I will give an answer. But I'm learning that it is so much more fun to watch somebody else figure it out on their own. And so I sit there as soon as my friend came in to get his hair cut. He's in the community as well. And he's always sad and he's always depressed, and I love him to death, but he just can't get past where he's at. And he also knows, is people are trying to do some trickery on you too. People who know some of the universal laws and tactics and stuff, like they just haven't quite had somebody, they have that information, but they haven't really utilized it, or nobody's actually said something to hit them just right to really say, okay, I can no longer stay in this space. I know too much to stay in this space. So when he came in, I was just finishing the room that I co-moderate, Money Consciousness Room, and she does a healing meditation at the end. And so I was just on the meditation when he walked in, and I told him, I said, oh my God, I said, I'm vibrating so high right now. I said, so I'm sorry that when you sit in my chair and we start having conversation, I'm going to be giving you stuff. I'm going to be dropping some things to you, right? And so one of the things that I asked him specifically, because to expound on what you were saying earlier, um, I said, you were talking about looking at for things, for the answers outside of yourself. And so he says to me, he's like, I want a relationship, but I can't, it's just not happening. And I said, well, let me ask you something. I said, why do you want a relationship? I said, is it because you want someone to love you? Are you looking for love? And he said, yeah. I said, do you love yourself? He said, no. I said, okay. You don't love yourself. There's your answer right there why nobody else is loving you. Because what Tiger Singleton said was that he said he's so light and airy. He doesn't put any pressure on anything. He's like, love is already here. We already have it in us. It's in the universe. It's right here present with you and I right now. This is love. This is truly love. And so what it is doing again is it's circulating from you into me back to you. And this is something that's just here and it's just present to us, right? But we get clouded about it because we think it's something that just is only activated by something outer, right? But if we do never do truly go deep down in the core of our beings and start unpacking all that shit, all those bad stories that was told to us, all that unworthiness that we feel about ourselves, all the negative stories we tell about ourselves when we look in the mirror and when we look at our bodies and we look at our faces and all these judgments and the things our parents told us, the things our aunties told us, and the people in school, what they said, what our friends said about us. That's a lot of stuff to peel back, right? But when you he talks about just he said, I don't talk to anybody who's not ready to just completely be honest with themselves. If you can't be honest with yourself, it's not going to work. You have to be honest with yourself about your shit. You have to smell it. In order to know, you got to clean it up.
Yep, 100%.
Drop the mic.
I feel like I think that something that I repeat so many times in my lives is that you have to be your most authentic self. For when people tell you that they love you, if you are not presenting your most authentic self to them, you will never believe that they love you, because you will always have that doubt in your head saying, well, if they knew this about me, if they knew this about me, if they knew this, and then you destroy the love that you said that you wanted. And it's there. They love you. You're not giving them the opportunity or chance to love you fully, but it's there, but you can't accept it because you don't believe it's possible. And it's just like, you have to accept that you are someone that can be loved. You have to love yourself. And as soon as you get to that point, then you will start to realize that there are a lot of people that love you. There are so many people out there that want to show you love. But if you can't accept it, then you're not going to receive it. And it's funny because so many people, you were talking about like the cycle of like love, there are people that will receive it and hold on to it and not put it out because they think that love needs to be captured because you never know when you're going to get it again. When in reality, they aren't sending it back out into the world. So the love that they're holding on to will soon dissolve or run out because love requires constant circurculation. And if you're not
Ooh,
also putting it out,
preach,
it's
Pastor.
it's going to
Preach,
dry
Pastor
up.
Drummond.
And I just think that a lot of people, because I've met people when I show them love, like they latch onto it and then they like want to put a cage on it and then they want to like hide it from the world. They don't want anyone else to see that that exists, and it kills it. And I've learned that because I try to put it out as much as I can. And I've learned that also when I put it out, it doesn't mean that it's going to come back from the person that I'm putting it out to. Sometimes it's someone else. Like there are plenty of times when I put love into my nephew, showing him how much I appreciate him and love him, and he goes and gives it back to his mom. He's not giving it back to me at that moment, but then when she gives it to him, he brings it back to me in that sense. And we don't get to
Flow.
control that.
Oh.
You don't get to decide where it comes from. You
It's
just
nothing
have to
personal.
accept it.
It's nothing personal. That's what that guy said. He said, I love you, but it's nothing personal. And I was like, wow, it's not. You just said it. It's nothing personal. I gave him this love. He brought it to his mom. The mom gives it to him, and then it comes back to me. And then people also, when you talk about capturing that love, when you give it to them, and they hold on to it, then what also happens is they start acting like they own you in some kind of way, right? And then trying to make the relationship be something that it wasn't supposed to be because you're trying to hold on to this love because you feel like I'm not giving this to other people, that I only gave it to you. No, it's a flow. Like everybody gets to enjoy it. It's here for all of us. It's right here. It's in the atmosphere. It is ours to own. But again, those people who take it and hold on to it, they also have so many other things that they're holding on to well that they haven't released in order to allow that flow.
Yeah. And people have to accept that. It's funny because once you get to the point where you see all of that, you can see where people are stopping it. You can see where the flow is not going. And you can see other people who don't love themselves,
Yep.
they don't believe in themselves, and you see it and you want to help, but you also have to realize that you might not be the person that opens their eyes to that concept because we all have specific blockers and we all have different techniques of unblocking certain things. And I think that it's so important for people to realize that sometimes our messages will go unheard, no matter how loud we scream it. But you have to keep saying it because someone's going to hear it, and it's going to open someone's eyes to a whole new reality. And it's interesting once you get there because you want to share it, and you can tell when someone is trying to sell you on something when they don't really fully understand what they're selling. Like there are plenty of coaches out there that want to sell, I can help you find a better life, but they still live in a limited belief system where they don't think there's enough out there for them. Because, I mean, I've worked with coaches where they're afraid if we work together that somehow I will take all of their clients or somehow their clients will dry up.
Mm.
And I'm
Mm.
just like, I work with like over 100 different people, and I absolutely love pouring onto them. I'm like, hey, I just met a client that would be perfect for you. Here you go. And like when you get into that feeling where you're just giving and knowing that you will receive exactly what you need,
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
interesting to get into that mindset. And it's weird because like I'm going through a transition period right now where it's something I've always wanted to do, but I've been scared to do it because I've had mindsets set in my head where it's like, you won't succeed. you're not good enough. And I started digging into those. I'm like, why do I feel that way? Well, my dad's told me ever since I was little I was not good enough. And I was like, okay, let's dig into that one a little bit deeper. Why do you believe what your dad has to say? Uh, and then you dig into it. Why do you think your dad has said that? And then you look and say, well, he had certain dreams and didn't achieve them. So maybe he doesn't believe you can always achieve something
Mhm.
because maybe he gave up too soon and he's trying to pass that belief onto you. Maybe it's because he doesn't love the fact that I'm part of the LGBT community. Somehow he sees that as a lessening thing to me as a person. So therefore, I am now subhuman or lesser than him or other people of the community, and somehow that will prevent me from reaching my goals. And you have to realize that those types of things, like the limitations others place on you, like you've got to pull those off. Like you've got to uncover what's really blocking you from doing what you want to do and start doing things. Like since I've started doing things and moving myself towards my goal, it's crazy how quickly things start falling onto your plate. Like people have been reaching out to me wanting me to be a part of their conferences. They're talking about doing like getaways where they have speakers and stuff, and they're like, we'd love for you to speak at one of our
Mhm.
getaways. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, wow. And now I've got universities reaching out to me asking me to be a speaker as an influential person in the 21st century. And I'm like, really? Okay. I mean,
I
I
don't
guess
want to
I'm
see. I don't want to
influential.
see no quotes. You are an influential person. Own it. Look, I'm gonna get you right now. Own it. You are an influential person. Look, before we go, I'm gonna do my little plug in. My book, Memoirs of a Geisha. You can get it on Amazon.com. Let me tell you, it's an incredible book. I feel so good to even be able to say that about my book because this has been my baby for quite some time and I didn't really own it. And so I've just finished reading it last night and all of this stuff that we're just talking about, it's all in here. And I'm just telling my stories. I'm telling how I peeled back those layers, right? And in not in an evangelistic way, just more of just sharing. I call it like the chicken soup for the soul, right? There's
Yeah.
stories in there. There's no specific order of the things that I went through. It's just saying how I began to be aware, right? I learned from Clubhouse of like when I get triggered or when I have that disturbance inside. It's just a call to go in, not to yell at somebody and beat somebody up, and because right. And so people don't understand. This is why now I don't get upset when somebody gets triggered by something that I said because I know that there was something there. I always knew that, but not in the way that I know it now. Like there's something that's calling them to go inward because it has nothing to do with me. And so I can fix what I said and I can apologize that it triggered them in that way. But it's up to them to decide to use those promptings and those triggers to bring themselves back in. So now when I feel it, I don't, I immediately go in. I used to just like feel it and just like be thinking like, kind of thinking somewhat lightly, like, why am I feeling this way or whatever, but not really. Once you really understand how to go within yourself when you feel that trigger, first of all, they're not going to be as amped as they normally would be, right? And so when I go in now, when I feel any kind of frustration, the answer comes to me right away. Oh, you shouldn't have been doing that anyway. Or, whatever. It's like it'll just come to you and then you fix it. And sometimes it's just the small things. But as you keep peeling those layers back, that's when it starts to start being a little bit minimalistic. And then you understand what that trigger is. It's not for you to react. It's more for you to go in and make some adjustments. So that way, the next time when you come across that situation again, you'll have a better way of responding, or a better way of moving through that situation than you did the previous time. So,
Yeah. I mean, I do that on a regular basis now, like when it comes to any type of annoyance, when it comes to jealousy, when it comes to any type of like negative thoughts that I'm having, like I sit there and I start to kind of roll around in it a little bit more, and I'm just like, why does this person upset me? And it's interesting because you've been in the room, uh, the privilege room that Val hosts every week, and there's one person who comes in and he hits a lot of triggers. Like he's literally just whacking every single person's trigger in the room when he speaks. But like in our background chat, when we're communicating with what we're trying to do, we're not talking based upon like something that he said and hit one of our triggers. We're talking about what can we say to let him know that we hear him? What can we say to let him know that there are certain things he can do to help himself heal and move further along on his journey? Because we can see every week he comes back in and he's stuck in that cycle.
In
It's
the loop. Yeah.
he's not moving forward. He comes back with the same anger and the same triggers every single time.
That's my
And
that's my client that I was telling you about. It's the same. He comes in with the same thing. So I did the opposite to him because I realized that other times when I've said things to him, like he heard me, but then he'd say, he has some counter action reaction to it, right? Like, yeah, well, I've heard that before, or I know that, or this and that, blah, blah, blah. But this time I shot everything that tried to keep him in that cycle, shot it down for his whole. He gets his haircut. It's about an hour haircut. He's one of my particular guys, and so we have a whole hour to get a haircut and unpack some things. And so I could tell, you could see when somebody's been illuminated, and when he was like, damn, I can't use that tactic anymore. Oh damn, I can't say that anymore because she got my number, right? And so, I mean, I don't know whether or not he'll take it and really actually allow himself to get out of that cycle, but that's not my duty to help him get out of the cycle. It's just to make you be aware. I was like, I'm just giving you a gift, my friend, because I love you. I said, you can't be around me and I have all these golden nuggets and me not hand them to you. I'm going to give them to you. Whatever you decide to do with it, that's on you.
yeah, I mean, there are definitely people who can hear stuff and it's not at the right time for them to use it. But I
Yes.
mean, it's still great for them to hear it because I mean, I have so many conversations now where people will literally like I will put so much positivity out there and direction for them and just let them come up with 1,000 excuses for why my advice is not going to work. And I just keep sitting there until they finally catch on and they're like, so I've literally negated everything that you said. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, every single like piece of advice, I've come up with a reason why it won't work. And I'm like, yeah, I, I mean, I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep throwing it at you because every excuse that you've given me so far is just your own blocking from moving forward in the direction you want to go. So I just sit there and I just wait for them to notice that I'm gonna keep going. And my friends, some of them will be like, you know what? Let's try something different. Let's you constantly tell me something and I'm just going to accept it as a fact instead of trying to reject it or come up with a reason why it wouldn't be good information. And the people who get to that point where they realize that because that's what they do in life too. Like there could literally be someone saying, I think you're very attractive. I would love to take you on a date. And they go, oh, that person's just trying to get my pants.
Yeah,
And I'm like, well, you just threw that one away. And
absolutely.
they're like, I would love to offer you a position. Oh, they just want me to do all their hard work for them. Okay, like the universe keeps giving you what you're asking for, but you also have that negation that you keep throwing on it and slapping stickers on anything because sometimes we think that it's a direct path to our goal, but sometimes the universe gives us a little sidestep and then it takes you in a completely different direction. But at the end, when it's your goal and you focus on it so much, it comes like
It's not
life
linear,
coaching.
right? It's not linear.
Exactly.
It's not linear. Sometimes there's some twists and turns and all this stuff. My boyfriend was called me up one day and he's super frustrated and I had just gotten out of a room, so I was ready. And I was like, okay, what do you need from me right now? So do you need me to just listen, or do you need me to help you troubleshoot this? And then he was frustrated. He said, well, the appointment I have at 1 o'clock is going to be 2 hours long. I said, well, do you have the time? Well, that's not the point. Blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, well, do you want this problem fixed that they're going to do for you? And he's like, you know what? I'll just talk to you later. So he calls me back. He texts me later, and he's like, everything went well. He ended up going to the appointment. So he obviously had the time. There was just some other things, some other personal things that he was fighting. And so just me being there and just asking a couple of questions, just he went and he said, everything went great. You know, I like this doctor. I feel confident about it, but he wasn't feeling confident about it beforehand. And so he was making up all of these stories that were not true. And that's what we do. We make up stories. But we have to remember that we are the projectors. So whatever stories we're telling ourselves is the story we're going to see in our lives.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I've fallen victim. I think that sometimes people think that you become awoke in a way, like enlightened, and then you don't have any more challenges. But like for
That's
me,
when it
I'm
starts.
just like,
That's when it starts.
yeah, I get it so many times. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But like the thing that I'm learning is I have to be open. Like I have to accept what the universe gives me at that time and stop thinking that I know the right way 100% of the time. And like the more open I've become, the more accepting of others' journeys and what little pieces they share with me that will help me, what pieces I can share with them, and not thinking that there's one person that, like your partner, like you can't expect your partner to do everything that you need him to do to move you in the direction you want to go in life.
Yes.
Maybe it's going to be one of your customers that come in that gives you one little piece that you need. Maybe it's someone you bump into at the grocery store. Maybe your mom gives you a little bit of something. Like everyone has something that they can give you, and you have to stop going through life assuming that your friends, because they're your friends, they have to give everything to you. Your partner, just because they're your partner, they have to give everything to you.
Now,
Sometimes,
why are you gonna get all this conversation all amped up like this when we about to get cut off? You ain't right.
no, it
You
doesn't
ain't
cut me
right.
off anymore.
It
I can
doesn't?
go I can go past 60 now. Eric and I went for
Really?
an hour and a half yesterday.
Oh, well, shit. Keep talking. So where were you? That we can't. So you were saying that we can't expect that our partners to give us everything. You know, that we might get it from other sources.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think that I've started to just, and this is another part of like figuring out, instead of just accepting, having an understanding of where certain things come from. Like I know that my nephew, he's 4 years old, he can bring me joy when I need it if I also give him what he needs to be happy. So like I will pour onto him and then he pours back onto me unknowingly because he's 4, but like it there's certain things that each person can do, and I think that I've started to identify which friends are the ones that I can just go to and relax with, which ones I can go to and have really professional conversations about business and the direction I want to go, which ones have a more awoke view of the world that I can bounce those types of conversations around with. And when you start to realize that, you start to accept that certain people have certain things to give you, and that's all that they've got to give you. They don't have anything else, and it's not bad. That's not wrong.
It's not at all. That's what I told when I broke up with my first boyfriend, and he contacted me and he said, I loved you the best that I could. Drummond, it still gives me the chills when I think about it, because I hung that phone up and I wept and I wept and I wept because I thought, because I was wanting more out of him, but he was giving me what he had. And so I was so sad that I didn't really feel like it was enough for me. But then I also realized that if it wasn't enough for me, then that was fine as well. Like it just wasn't enough. It was like, that was, you gave me all you had, but it still wasn't enough for me. And then expounding on the people who we think we give things to are going to be the ones to return it for us. When I moved from Louisiana to Indiana after Hurricane Katrina, um, I met some amazing people. I was in a college town. People were more, they were educated, they were more forward thinking. And so I met some incredible people. And I was having some financial issues, and my lights got cut off. And I was so embarrassed because I'd never been in a position like that before. And, I've always had money, and I don't know, I can't even tell you what happened and how I got into that funk. But for the first time, I decided that I was going to reach out. And first of all, I reached out to the friends who I have given loads of money to and who have supported financially. I had supported them financially in many ways over the years. And I thought, well, this is the time now, so many years later, I mean, never asking them for anything, that I'll reach out to them to give them the opportunity to give to me. Now, Drummond, they took a while to get back to me, first of all. And then when they got back to me, like, I still don't know to this day because I didn't want to look into my account to see how much they had given me, because I had given them my account number to deposit the money. At the time, they didn't have the Venmo and all that stuff. And so I didn't go in there to see because I didn't want to get frustrated about the amount. Because really what I was doing, I was testing them to see if they was going to come and help me like I had helped them. And I was disappointed just in the way that they, first of all, didn't respond to me right away. Like, oh, oh my God, if you need help, I'm going to be there for you. I got none of that. And I kind of knew that I wouldn't. And so I decided, instead of being quiet about it, that I would just share that I was going through this situation. And I told one of my clients who was well-to-do. And so, and I wasn't sharing with her because I wanted her to give me some money. I talk about my stories. I talk about what's going on in my life. And that was something that was going on, and I wasn't going to conceal it. So when we got to the register, like, she gave me her credit card to pay for her hair. And then she took her checkbook out and she wrote me out a $760 check. And she was like, here, this is for you. She said, all I want you to do is come to my house and style my hair, which her hair was short. She said, just give me a style. The 2 times come to my house, a couple times give me a style. Those friends who I did things for, you know how long they would have made me pay for that $760? They would have never, ever let me forget that they had given me that. But this was somebody, and I forgot to mention, I barely knew her. I barely knew her. And then a mutual friend of ours who was also well-to-do, at the time I was getting ready to become a jazzercise, a fitness instructor. And so I had to go do an audition and everything. And you become like a franchisee owner or something like that. And so it was $1,000 to pay into it. And one of my clients and friend who I barely knew, she gave me she went to the bank. She said, I need to go to the bank. I dropped it to the bank. And she was $500. She gave me $500 of the money that I needed. And I didn't even ask for that. She was just like, oh, I just love when people are doing things and trying to better themselves, and I'm going to give it to you. So these were unlikely sources. And that was when it really occurred to me that it's not always, most of the time, it's not at all from the people who you are sowing into that you're going to get it back from. But you know what we do? We end up thinking that, oh, I gave this person that and I did this. Because first of all, we didn't give it without expecting in the first place. We gave it to them with the expectation that when we needed them, that they would be there for us. And that was our mistake. And then we got angry about it. And then we just get all disgruntled, and we don't having all these thoughts about this person that we did something for. It's like, when I hear that now, when I'm saying, like, I was that person, I'm talking about me. I'm like, that was just so ridiculous. Like, that was just such a bad place to be in, because I was always, always in that position. I was always in that position of expecting the people that I gave to give to me. It wasn't until I opened my mouth to simply say that my lights got cut off and I'm having some financial issues that people were willing to reach out, and even other people that I didn't tell about it. One of my friends was mad. She said, "Why you didn't ask me? Why didn't you come to me?" I was like,
Yeah.
there you go. There you have it.
Yeah. I mean, I've also been in the position where financially I was just like, oh gosh, what happened? And I was blown away by the amount of support that I got from complete strangers for the most part. And it wasn't people asking for it to be returned. It was people who have watched my content. They have seen me grow on the internet. They've seen me. I've done some things for people in person, and I generally try to give without the idea of ever receiving anything from people. I think when it comes to friends, I held them a little bit more accountable, but it was very interesting to kind of have so many strangers pour into me when I needed it. Last year, my car, I went out, I was trying to find toilet paper because that was when it was scarce, and my engine blew up. Like the cylinders cracked, and I still owed like $11,000 on that car. And I just posted on my Instagram, I was like going for a run because I need to clear my head right now because at the time I thought it was just the radiator that needed being replaced, and come to find out it was the engine, which was going to be like an $8,000 fix. And
Yeah.
someone just messaged me and they're like, send me your like PayPal. And I was just like, I don't want to ask for money. Like, I don't, like, I'll figure it out. And they're like, no, I really want to help. You've helped me with so much. And I was just like, okay, well, like, I don't know when I would be able to pay it back. And they're just like, you don't need to pay it back. And I got the PayPal request, and this person had given me $1,500. And I was just like, whoa. And then more and more people started asking like what they could do to help. And they're like, hey, I've got a couple of extra dollars, like you can have it. I ended up raising like almost $9,000 in a 2 day period. And I was just like, I could not believe, like, I put out into the world because I want other people to be happy. I want other people to be able to go through life feeling the way that I feel a lot of the time.
Yes.
And like I cried so much when I saw that, and then like my friend who I've done stuff with on my channel, I hang out with, and we talk on a pretty regular basis. Like he reached out to me and he was like, what do you need from what you've raised so far to get you to that point that you need, like, to get a new car? And I was like, well, I need this much left. And he was just like, here, I want you to get a new car, get one that doesn't need work, get something better. And so, like, I drive in this car, and every day I see it, it just reminds me that there are so many people out there that care about me and want me to succeed and want to help when I stumble, because I fall a lot. I think that because I run towards my goals and I run towards the front lines to help people, like, there, I get stabbed in the back. I get, because I don't look. I don't make judgments about people. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to help this person because based upon this and that, like, if someone asks for help, I'm like, I want to help. And that a lot of times gets me punched in the face, screwed over, but I do it because I think that that's what we all should be doing. And it was really nice to see all these people like come to my aid when I fell flat on my face. And I was just like amazed. So like when people talk about like all the negative things that are happening in the world, I'm like, don't forget, like there are phenomenal people out there. And like there are people that are in my inbox every single day sending me beautiful things, and it's so nice to have that. But I realized that I first also had to be that person that would put it out, but I also had to learn how to receive it because I was really bad at that. Like I thought that I should always be giving, and I would block anything from being received because a lot of it had to do, I didn't think I deserved it because there was a lot of things in my head that made me think that I still had to earn anything like that. I didn't think that I deserved anything like that. And so I had to break down that wall as well. It wasn't just I had to realize that I was worthy to be here on this earth. I also had to realize that I was worthy of receiving the gifts that others were giving to me.
Let me
And
cut you because you got I have so many things that you're touching on that I'm like I'm gonna forget all of them if I let you keep going. But
go
you
for it.
know, one of the things that we say in the money consciousness room is that when we say money comes to me earned and unearned, right? And so when you said being able to not receive it, that happened to me when I put this out there that money comes to me earned and unearned. And then I started having some things happen to me that I felt like I didn't really earn. And I was like, wait. And then, but what, here's the thing about consciousness is catching it. I caught it. And I said, oh, I asked for this. I asked for this. So I have to receive it, right? So there's so many nuances and so much, underneath the surface that has to bubble up, in order for us to really get to that place where we just, now that's an area that I understand. Now I have a release on the receiving. Didn't even know I was still having that issue, right? Because at that time when that lady gave me that money, I received it. But there's still work. You still have to work on those areas in your life. I recently had this guy, I'm talking literally like in the last 2 weeks. He's been a Facebook friend of mine for a long time, but we've never met in person. And, he's always posting his beautiful food that he eats and all these designer clothes that he buys and all this stuff, he's in the community. And he recently had a post with his food, and I said, yum. And immediately he sent me back this his GoFundMe. And he said that he had gotten COVID. And he said that his body is taking, it's not healing itself. Like he's like, I don't know what's going on, but I have a lot of hospital bills and this and that. So I felt, it was funny because I'm a giver like you, and I felt vexed about it. Now I did do that thing where I was like, oh, he got all these designer clothes, and so I was thinking, I'm going to just sell some of that, right? But again, that disturbance that I had, I knew it was deeper than me just, saying, because I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he has been selling his clothes, but he just has so much debt that wasn't enough, right? So I had to take myself away from that and then dig deeper to see how could I help? I knew that it wasn't monetary because I was thinking like, well, I could give him something because I really had to give, but for some reason, my inner voice was telling me like money is not what he needs from you. And then so he sent me again. He sent me again a message because I didn't respond to the first one. And then he sent me this long message explaining more into detail what was going on. And so finally I wrote him back and I wrote him a really nice message. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm not in the position to give to you financially right now. I said, but I do have something that I do want to offer you that is far more valuable than money, because it's not all about dollars and cents, right? But when we give, it's still currency. So I offered him a conversation with me. I said, there's some things that you're not letting go within yourself. There's a lot of blockages there that need to be unblocked. I said, and I would like to help you to at least start the process of unblocking those areas in your life spiritually so that your body can start to heal.
Someone call you.
So that your body can start healing yourself, and he thanked me. He said, oh my God, thank you so much. I appreciate the words of wisdom. And I don't know if he'll use it, if he'll take the opportunity to talk to me. He might not be ready. But that what I offered was also currency. So we have to realize that it's not about dollars and cents all the time. It's also about us donating our time or giving our time to someone. So yeah, that's a powerful conversation.
Yeah. I I definitely never looked at the content that I was creating as something that was worthy of a dollar exchange, and it was very interesting to realize that the stuff that I was putting out there was helping people, and that that's okay to accept money because I definitely have a strong upbringing from my grandparents and my dad where it's all about like they are so wrapped around money. And so like everything's about money for them. So I really had to start to like unwrap that because I had a bitter taste of money. Like it made people selfish, it made people greedy. I've had my family use money over me, like they give me something to help me out and then use it against me later. So like I had such a bad relationship with money, and that I had to heal for me to realize that the work I do deserves to be paid. That's not bad. And
It's not.
the work that I do is something that people pay for on a very regular basis. And I
Doesn't the Bible
realized there
say
was a
your
shift.
gifts will make room for you? The Bible says it. Your
Yeah,
gifts will make room for you.
there was a shift in because I think for a while I was doing good in the world because I felt like I had to earn my space in the world. And I felt like that was something I had to do, and I couldn't accept money for it because I felt guilty for it.
Hmm.
But then when I realized that you shouldn't feel guilty for that, like I needed to heal my relationship with money and my self-worth. And when I started to realize that, I was like, you know what? Like I put a lot of time into this. Like I'm not giving them the wisdom of an hour session. I'm giving them the wisdom that I've gained from 33 years on this earth, along with all the books, all the conversations, all the podcasts, all the knowledge I've obtained and purposely go out into the world to seek and find. That is worth something to give to people. And I give it freely most of the time to people in just small conversations. But also, like when I work with clients, like that is something that I am allowed to ask for because I'm giving them something that is of value. And I think that it's hard to, when it comes to coaching in that sense, it's hard when it comes to art. There's like the story of I think it was Van Gogh or something, where he was like scribbling on a napkin, and the waitress asked if she could have it, and he asked for like a large sum of money, and she's like, "It took you like 5 seconds to do that," and he's like, "No, this is something that I've had to work for my entire lifetime to be able to put something out that quickly on a napkin." And I think that that really stuck with me to make me realize that it's not just the time that I'm speaking to someone that I'm like charging for. I'm
Yeah.
charging for the lifetime that I've lived to gain the knowledge and experience to
Woo!
be able to
Good
give the
stuff.
advice I give in those 60 minutes.
Good stuff. Good stuff. You know, also when you were talking about you didn't feel worthy of it, that's what this money consciousness room, it also breaks down all of that, right? It's because it's not, it's again, it's not linear. You don't think like, oh, there's just one thing that might be blocking me for money. Like there's a and generational thing that causes these blockages, right? Like you said it earlier. You put the wallpaper up and then you paint over it and you put another layer of wallpaper up and then, you know, it just takes time to peel all of that back. But Dr. Nicholas said she did a TED talk, and it hit me. This quote that she said, "Your net worth, your outer net worth mirrors your inner self worth." That like vibrated through my body, like like it was like not even like electricity, but it was the wave that went through, and it was quite light. But it took like sometimes when somebody says something that really emanates through me, like you said about the Van Gogh writing on the napkin or drawing on the napkin, that resonated for me. That sat with me for a couple of weeks, and in that room, I kept every time I spoke, I I said that quote because I had to keep reminding myself that or keep doing the check on my self-worth, on my inner self-worth, because you also have to be able to get to the space where you're at ease, that even when if you go into your account, that you don't see a bunch of zeros, right? Like maybe it was lower than what you thought it was, and also not letting that frighten you, just understanding that the money is also a flow. It's also energy, right? And so we have to allow ourselves to get in the space. Once we get in this space, it's all about our self-worth. Isn't that crazy? It boils down to our self-worth. All the other stuff is just energy. Money only has value because we have put the value on it, right? Our work that we do has value when we put the value on it. If we don't think it's valuable, how is anybody else going to think it's valuable? And like you said, in counteracting that, if they think it's valuable and you don't think it's valuable, it's still not going to be valuable. My book to me was not valuable to me in a way that in a way that it is now, because there was this unworthiness to me that to even call myself an author. There are many people who wish and would love to write a book, but don't even know how to get started, or it's because it is gruesome, especially when you're talking about your own life. It's gruesome to have to read that over and over and over again, right? That was a lot of work. That was a lot of hours spent. When I finally like got to the meat of it to try to finish it, I literally would go to sleep. When I wake up, I would start writing, and then I'd take a nap, go wake up, start writing again, and I did this around the clock for 2 months to finish it because I was out of work, and I decided that I wanted to just nail it down, and that was a lot of work, and I understood it. I understood the work that I put into it, but I still couldn't quite find the value because I still was not vibrationally feeling my worthiness. It was not on the plane that it is now. And now today I can look at my book and I mean, I can't even believe, like I read it like as if it was somebody else's writing. And I was being particular about some of my punctuations and stuff, but the meat and the important stuff that was in there, like every word from beginning to end, I did not feel like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I should have said that out. Every word in there means something. Every word in there has something to do with all the conversations that I've been having with all the people that I have met on Clubhouse. How could that be? This was written like 8 years ago, almost. Just about 7 or 8 years ago, I wrote this book. And I'm just now feeling the value for it, and people are buying it. I mean, when you were the first person to tell me on Clubhouse that you bought a copy of my book. And that also made me feel good. That raised something inside of me. Like if you were the first one, and then Susan bought one, and then my friend told me he bought 4. So I'm like, this is what I asked for. I asked for this. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you speak in the room, and then I started like investigating your profile, and I saw that you had a book, and I was like, I have to read it. So I haven't read it yet. I have packed it in a box, and it's in the top, so I know where it's at. But as soon as I get to my new apartment this weekend, like I'm going to be unpacking it, and I just finished up the last book that I was reading, so that's going to be the first one I start reading. And talking about like the Clubhouse room that we want to get started, like the biggest issue was like the time and being in a space where I didn't have service. And now I'm going to be living where I've got perfect cell phone service. I've got all the internet that I can ever need. So like I am 100% ready to get that room up and
And we
running
didn't
because
have
I
any
think,
glitches. We had no glitches today. And we had another
yes,
amazing conversation.
it was beautiful. I knew it would be. I doubt any time we ever have a conversation that it wouldn't be great. So I just think that this needs to happen more often. I'm super excited. We just have to figure out when works best for us since we got the time zone difference. Now I can do super late over here because I'm not sitting in the middle of nowhere with no service. So
Great.
I think
Yeah. So
that,
we'll work out those kinks. It'll all work out. You getting yourself acclimated into your new space and all that stuff. And as you know, we talked about that flow. It will flow right into it. And then we'll be just having so much fun helping people like we like to do. We have that in common. So I'm so glad that I met you. And thank you again for having me for another
yeah.
session. I'm so
I'm
excited
so
about
glad we got through an hour and a half with no glitches, and I just think that that's
it.
phenomenal.
Who knew? Who knew? Get your copy. Get your copy. Memoirs of a Geisha
Yep.
on Amazon.com. It's a great
I'll
read, guys.
I'll
It's
put
a
a
lot.
link on my story after I share this post for like a swipe up so people can get to it a little bit faster.
Perfect.
I've learned
Perfect.
the easier you make it for people to get to, the like more likely people will do it.
People like convenience. Have a
Awesome.
great evening,
Yeah, you
Drummond.
too. And hopefully this will be the only thing that I have to experience is just a little bit of sore arm. I'm hoping that everything goes well because I'm excited about this move this weekend and I don't want any COVID symptoms to make that
To
rough.
hinder that,
So
right? Exactly. Well, you
that's
just
why
put
I've
it
been
out
like,
there. You just put it out there. Everything will be fine. What is that you're drinking?
I'm drinking water. I've already had like a huge thing of Pedialyte. I'm doing everything to give my body the everything it needs to just like
Perfect.
function perfectly.
Perfect. I got the Pedialyte the next day after I was already feeling bad, so I didn't know that I needed it beforehand. So the Pedialyte like instantly made me feel good. So yeah, just
Perfect.
keep
I've
on,
got
keep
four
on.
of them.
I was about to say, just keep drinking it. Just keep drinking them. You'll be fine.
Awesome. Well, I will talk to you soon and
Yes,
super excited about seeing where things go with both of our platforms.
me too. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye bye.